Everyone on the internet is talking about how to glow up, how to be the best version of yourself, how to thrive in 2025, make this year the best year yet. And I want to talk about that as well today, but we are going to talk about it from a way that is realistic, that promotes a healthy, balanced lifestyle that does not just focus on like hustling as hard as we can until we burn out and can no longer keep up. I want to talk about just 11 healthy habits that we can do that are going to promote rest and productivity and just allow us to show up consistently for ourselves, even if in the past we have failed at our goals. If you have felt lazy or inconsistent or felt like you can't fully be the person that you want to be, this is the video for you. I'm going to give you encouragement without any shame around it. I feel like what a lot of videos can do is kind of make us feel bad about ourselves to make us do better. And on this corner of the internet, we talk about things that are realistic and we talk about ways that we can move forward and not get stuck in that cycle of shame, which usually never ends well. Welcome back to the Hot Mess Habits podcast. My name is Victoria Harder. I'm your host. I'm a content creator, wife, mom, business owner, photographer, and overall just a girl with ADHD who considers herself type B and is just trying to navigate her 20s, get through life, try to be as organized as possible, fail majority of the time, but we still keep showing up. I'm very proud of how much this podcast has grown. I'm so thankful for each of you. I know that I keep saying that week in and week out, but like I truly just am blown away each week that you guys keep listening and that you guys send me very kind messages about how the podcast has impacted you. And I hope to continue to be able to do that. Like I mentioned in the intro, I really feel strongly about there being productivity advice and like wellness advice out there that feels realistic to the everyday person. Not everyone has 1,000,000 hours a week to dedicate to their wellness and to like thinking about their goals and to doing all of these things. So instead, I want to offer you these little tidbits that you can take and you can apply to your life no matter what stage you're in. And if there are things that you're like, oh, you know what, I don't think that's even realistic for me right now, that's okay. Just take it or leave it. Today, we're going to talk about 11 healthy habits that you can do to glow up this year. And when we're talking about glowing up, we're talking about it in a very holistic way, including not just like our physical selves, which I think that can be sometimes the terminology that's used for glow up is like, you know, being the hottest version of ourselves. We are going to talk about just our habits, our productivity. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about physical, but overall we're going to chat about just how do we become a version of ourselves that we're proud of, that we look back on at the end of this year and we can say like with confidence that we showed up for ourselves, for our families, for the people around us this past year, and truly make this year as best we possibly can. This year may not be your best year yet, but we do still want to make the most of every single day that we're given. And I think that there's so much value and importance to that, and that, each day has value and not just throwing days away or throwing things away because you're not in your ideal season. We'll get into it. Let's start with the first thing here. Okay, so my first tip for you is to stop focusing on 6 months from now, a year from now, multiple years from now. Like, I think that what we can tend to do, and I can fall victim of this as a type B girl, as someone with ADHD, as just overachiever type personality, I feel like can very much either spend time in regret over the things that I haven't done, or I can spend time kind of fantasizing about like the person I'm going to become and like who I'm going to be in 6 months from now, who I'm going to be in 2 years from now. And what I really need to do, and what I'm sure you probably really need to do, is focus on the current moment. So instead of spending hours this week watching like 100 YouTube videos like this where people are telling you like, this is what you should do, this is what you should do, I want you to focus on what you can do this week. So instead of like planning out the next 5 years, instead of spending hours down like the Pinterest rabbit hole looking up like what your dream life is going to be like in 5 years from now, or once you get your dream job, or once you become a mom, I want you to focus on this week. So what can you do this week to make the most of the week? What can you do this week that will move you towards the future version of yourself, the person that you would like to become? What can you do tomorrow to show up for yourself? So I want you to start with just planning out tomorrow. I want you to sit down. I want you to plan out what your day is going to look like tomorrow and how you could make maybe a few little adjustments to make that day a little bit more aligned with who you do want to be in 6 months from now, who you do want to be in 1 year from now. I want you to start with planning out tomorrow. And then I want you to just look at the next week and say, okay, this is what this week looks like. Here are some ways that I can adjust to better align with my goals. One example I will use, this is more of like a surface level example, is, as you all know, I am working on building the podcast, building up my content creation, building up like being able to have a personal brand. And that obviously requires a lot of time and energy. And I work full time. I have a business. I have lots going on. I have a son, a husband, like I have lots going on. And so for me to be able to do this content creation thing, I have to be very like focused on scheduling that into my life. And what can happen is I can just kind of go through my weeks and things will get busy. And so I just like will forget to post on Instagram, or I will just realize that, oh, I need to make time to film the podcast. And again, I know that this is like a surface level thing, but when I take the time to like actually plan out my day and actually plan out my week, there's always time that I can kind of fit in. Oh yeah, okay, I need to block off like an hour and a half to film my podcast, or I need to block off like 30 minutes to schedule an Instagram post. Often what I would otherwise be doing in that time is like scrolling or watching a TV show or something. But if I can take the time in advance to plan it out, then I'm good. And so I'm sure that there's things like that throughout your week that you can think of where it's like, okay, I know that I want to get my steps in. So that probably requires you maybe walking to work or walking to school or planning to go on a walk on your lunch break. And it probably is just a small little tweak, but it just needs to be planned in advance because it's not just going to like happen to you, you know? So I would really encourage you this week to just look ahead, look at tomorrow. What does tomorrow hold? How can we adjust a little bit to move it towards our future goals? How can we adjust the next week, move it towards our future goals? And when the goal with this is that we're just adjusting our focus from being very like forward focused or very like regret looking towards the past to looking at right now in the present moment. The second thing for glowing up is to work on processing your emotions. This is a big thing for me this year because, as I mentioned in my 50 goals for 2025, I really want to work on writing because that for me is a way that I process things. And I feel like after COVID, I felt kind of frozen in terms of like, how do I actually process my emotions? I feel like there was just so much going on that for the last few years, I feel like I've kind of been shut down and I don't experience probably like more of the sadness emotions as much as I used to. And not that I like want to experience those emotions, but I just know that there's probably ways in which I should be processing things a little bit more. So I'm just encouraging you to think about, okay, how do I process emotions? And is there ways that I can kind of lean a little bit more into that? So for me, I've realized, okay, I need to spend more time journaling. That's something that's healthy for me. When I write things out, it can help me kind of like, as I'm writing, it's making me think in a different way. It's making me, maybe there's things that I kind of write out that I'm like, oh, that kind of surprised me. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe for you, it's being more intentional about having more in-depth conversations with your friends about things other than just like, you know, what you saw on TikTok. Maybe it's like, okay, let's like actually talk about how we're doing or things like that. Maybe it's just like, okay, I need to be alone more. I need to spend more time just driving in my car, listening to music, driving my car in silence, spend more time in prayer, whatever that looks like for you. I want you to try to lean into that this year and not just step away from those negative emotions, because I think when we do that, it always ends up being more intense later on. The third thing is to pre-plan your rest. I know sometimes it feels like we can just keep going and going and going, and that the like excitement of the activities and everything just will keep fueling us. And there are seasons when I kind of rely on all of that adrenaline to keep pushing through and keep going. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie to you, sometimes it does work, but overall, I do not recommend it. And I think that when it really comes down to it, I always end up crashing and burning, and it's not a good thing. So I want you to look ahead to your next month, to your next 2 months, and I want you to pre-plan out some rest, okay? I want you to get in the habit of doing this. You could do this on a weekly basis where you're like, okay, on Monday nights, I'm not going out. That's my home night. I'm taking the night off, making no plans. I'm staying home. Maybe it means once every like 2 months, you're going to go away for a night, whether that's like with your family or by yourself, and spend some time alone. But pre-plan what rest looks like for you. Honestly, sometimes for me, it just looks like, okay, I have like an hour that I need to spend by myself today, and I'm going to go have a bath instead of working on my podcast, or instead of working on my business. I'm going to go have a bath, and that is like my rest for the night. And I know that's cheesy because I feel like always people are like, self-care isn't just bubble baths. Sometimes for me, having a bath is the best version of self-care. So I subscribe to that. One of my outs for 2025, which has honestly been one of my outs for the last 3 years, is Sunday resets, because I feel like the Sunday reset is so glamorized. I don't know what Sunday did to deserve this, but for some reason people are obsessed with it and they continue to be obsessed with it. I personally feel like the Sunday reset feels like another like chore to me, and it's taking away the rest of my Sunday. So I'm a strong believer in clean for 15 minutes every day. And I'm just going to be honest with you, my house is not immaculate. I know it's shocking, but my house is not immaculate, and I'm okay with that. I could spend more time cleaning, but for me, doing 15 minutes a day at least keeps my house at like a bare minimum. I feel like if I were to just be like rely on a Sunday reset, I would just kind of allow myself like, oh, I'm just going to let things pile up. I'm just going to let things pile up. And then on Sundays, it would feel so overwhelming to me. I wouldn't want to do it. I'm being like, obviously I still, on the weekends, I feel like I still do more chores than I normally would, but I just really encourage you to just focus on doing 15 minutes a day. Doesn't matter what it is, but just 15 minutes doing something. Okay, we're talking about glowing up in all areas of life. And one of those areas is not feeling like a hot mess all the time. It's about feeling like calm and put together. And one thing for me is when I go to my purse and I actually have all of the things I need. And again, this is one of those things where if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. But there is nothing that makes me feel better than when I go to my purse and it actually has all the things that I need in it. So when I go to my purse and it has like a Tylenol, a lip balm, a peppermint oil, Aquaphor, like all of the things, a pen, all the things that I like to use are there. Wow, I feel like I have my life together. I feel like that girl in that moment. And the way that I can make this work, and the way that this works really well for me, is by keeping a pouch in my purse. The pouch then is able to move from like purse to purse. I'm able to bring it inside easily to like restock it. And I just know also I have a really big tote bag right now. If all of those items were just loose in the tote bag, like I would have no idea what's in there. They would get like covered in probably like an old muffin or like, you know, fishy crackers. And so when I have this pouch, I just feel so organized. I feel so on top of the world. And I also, in the summer, I'll keep like my sunscreen in there. I usually have a mascara in there. I have pads in there. And so the way that I do this is I buy duplicates, and I never want to encourage overconsumption for the sake of it. But for something like this has really changed my life, because what I used to do is like I would just transfer things kind of into my purse. But then when I would want to use them when I was at home, they wouldn't be there. And then when I'd want to use them in my purse, they'd probably be at home. So for example, like Aquaphor, I always carry Aquaphor with me. I'm an eczema girly, and so I always need Aquaphor. What I used to do is just have one tube of Aquaphor, and I would transfer it like from my home to my purse. But then sometimes I would forget it in either location, and then I would be very annoyed because my skin would be dry and I really needed it. And then I was like, why don't I just buy 2 of them? Like, they're not that expensive. And so same thing with my mascara. I have mascara at home. I have my mascara in my purse. And it's just done something to my brain where I feel so organized when I'm out and about. You could also do this in your car if you don't carry a purse. You could just like leave some duplicates of things in your car that you use regularly. I'm telling you, this has changed the game for me. It's just a small little thing, but it makes me feel so put together. The next thing is not leaving the house without food or water. If you are trying to glow up this year, you're probably trying to spend less money. You're probably trying to be a little bit healthier. And so being able to leave the house with water and a snack is essential, okay? It's going to help you for multiple reasons. One of them is going to be that you're not going to be tempted to eat out. And the second one is that you are going to be able to choose maybe a healthier option. If you want to take this a step even further, having some snacks pre-prepped at your house to grab easily on your way out is also amazing. I made a huge batch of muffins the other day, or like a couple weeks ago, and just put them all in the freezer. And now before I leave the house, I'll grab a couple for my son and I, and it's been the best. Like, it saves me so much money, because before I would probably just go through like the Starbucks or Tim's drive-through and get him a muffin. And so now I just have them and he's perfectly content with that. It saves me getting hangry or feeling like I'm depleted. And also water. Like, I know that some people don't have this issue, but I just need the little reminder of like, okay, I need to bring water when I leave the house, because otherwise I will start running errands and then I'll get so thirsty, and then I'll go to Winners and there's like a nice water cooler there, or like a cooler with drinks in it. And I'm like, I don't even have water. Might as well buy one. No, we're not buying any bottled water in 2025. We have it at home. Put some ice in it and bring it along. One of my favorite things to encourage people to do is to use menus instead of routines. And I have a whole dedicated video on this, on how having a morning menu instead of a morning routine will change your life. Go watch that video, go listen to that podcast episode. But I just want to talk about it a little bit today. If you haven't heard the concept, instead of having a very rigid routine in which you're trying to stick to. So instead of having like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m., I'm going to read at 6:15, I'm going to have my breakfast at 6:30, I'm going to go for a workout, I'm going to do this. And it's very like, I'm going to do the same thing every single day. Give yourself a menu with different options depending on your energy level and see how you feel about this. This for me took away so much guilt, because what I was trying to do was the first option, where I was just like, hey, this is my morning routine. I need to do it every day. Obviously, that is not realistic, especially as women with hormonal cycles who feel different every single day of the month and also have many responsibilities. And most people have many responsibilities where some days they just cannot give the same energy as they did the day before. And I'm not trying to encourage you to, not have good habits, not have good routines. I'm just trying to encourage you to show up for yourself with the energy level that you have and be consistent about doing that, instead of being consistent about doing tasks just for the sake of doing them. The next thing is aiming for swaps instead of cuts. So what I think that people can tend to do, especially at this time of year, at the beginning of the year, they're like, I'm cutting this out. So I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm cutting out sugar, I'm cutting out screen time, I'm cutting out X, Y, and Z. There's a million things, right? People are like, stop doing this. And so instead of cutting things fully out, I want you to aim to swap or to limit. I know for some of us perfectionists, this can kind of make us feel a little bit like, well, no, I'm just going to cut it out. Like, I can do it. But what can happen is when we focus so much on just like the cutting of something, the restriction of something, it can just lead in the end to an overconsumption of it. So, because all you're thinking about is that thing. For example, for me, scrolling was something that I was like, I really don't want to scroll. I'm so done with scrolling before bed. I just like, it's making me feel icky. It doesn't help my brain. There's nothing about it that's like been good for me. And I knew that if I were to just be like, okay, I'm just going to stop scrolling on my phone, that's all I would think about is like, oh, I miss my phone. Oh, I should go get my phone. Oh, I should scroll. Like, oh, well, I'll just scroll for 5 minutes. Like, it's fine. I'll just scroll for 5 minutes. Instead, I was like, okay, I need to learn to like something other than scrolling. Like, what can I replace scrolling with? What can I do instead of that? For me, instead of cutting out my phone entirely, I swapped my evening scrolling time right before bed with reading a fun book. And so think about if there's anything in your life that you're kind of feeling like you're over, you want to make the change, try to see if there's anything that you can swap instead of just focusing so much on cutting that thing out. If you have notifications on for every single app on your phone, I am genuinely concerned about you. And this is like the number one tip I want you to listen to out of this whole section, is to go to your notification section and make some edits. I personally have very, very limited apps that I will allow to have my notifications on for. I do not have any social media apps give me notifications. I've been very, very strict about this since about like 2015, honestly, because even in high school, I could recognize the damage of when I would post something on Instagram and then like waiting at my phone for like the feeling, like the sensation of like all of the notifications coming in, seeing all the likes, seeing people comment, like, and I was like, okay, this is not good for me. And I could recognize that back then. And so that was a very hard boundary for me. And even as I have continued on Instagram, even as I now have like a business on Instagram, I still do not have any of my notifications on. And trust me, I'm not saying this in a way that I'm like, oh, I'm better than anyone else because of this. But I just think that that this has given me so much peace. I already get stressed out enough from like my text messages, never mind needing any outside apps to give me notifications. So I really encourage you, go through your notification list, look at what you're allowing to like pop up on your phone screen, because those things can sometimes have the power to change our mood and how we're feeling and how we're doing. And so just letting those things be silenced and not hearing from them, allowing us to at least, I mean, I know you're probably checking your social media apps multiple times a day anyways, so I don't think you're going to miss out on too much. So go to your notification section, and then also I want you to go and try out using a focus mode on iPhone. If you have not done this, I strongly recommend. Focus mode allows you to prohibit notifications from people and allow notifications from people. So for example, during my work day, during my work hours, I have it set so that I can only get notifications. So I only have notifications on for like my texts and my calls, but during my work day, I only have it set to have notifications from about 4 people. And so all my other texts and calls will just go straight to voicemail, straight to my text messages. I won't see them because I will get very distracted if I do. Same thing with the opposite. What you can get it to do is like, okay, say you have people who text you in the evening. You can also do the opposite. So if you have anyone from work who texts you, you can have it so that in the evenings when you're like maybe off your work hours, it just automatically mutes all of them. And again, you can get Apple to do this automatically once you set it up. So you don't even have to think about it. Like you don't have to try to do this yourself. Apple will just do it for you based on the times that you set for it. I'll maybe do, if you guys want, I can do a little tutorial and show you a more in depth of how I do this. Let me know if you're already doing this, because for me, these focus modes have been amazing. The next thing that I want you to do to glow up for this year is to ask someone to come alongside you. Whether this is more of like a mentor relationship where you're asking someone older, like, hey, I really would like some advice. I would like someone to hold me accountable. Or whether this is maybe someone that you're doing this with, where you're in the same kind of spot and you're like, let's hold each other accountable. Let's chat about what our goals are. Let's chat about how we want to improve this year. And you're doing that alongside someone. I really, really encourage you to find someone that you can chat through these things with. But what I don't want you to do is announce this on the internet. And I know that I announced all of my goals in my last episode. So, I'm the hypocrite here. But I do think that there's something to be said about just like holding some things close to us and just not always having to announce everything. I think that connection and bringing people into where we're at is so valuable on like a small level. So like, finding that mentor relationship, finding someone that's close to you that you guys can chat through about this stuff with. But I think that when it comes to making like these big announcements or like telling random people like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this year. If there's no accountability there, you can just kind of be doing it for the sake of like getting that little rush of like their approval in the moment. So I just want you to be careful about who you're like telling your goals to. I think the whole concept of like working on yourself, working on your goals in like silence and quiet, and then letting people kind of see the results at the end is really powerful. Obviously, we all want that gratification feeling of having people be proud of us, or having people feel like, or having that sensation of like, oh, we've accomplished something. But I promise you that it'll feel so much better when you get to the end, and when that's actually done, then, get in before, like making announcements or telling people about things before they're really actually truly done. Okay, the next thing is going to be focused on our physical appearance, and it is going to be getting ready for the day. There is just something that changes in our brain. I don't know the science on it. I don't know if there's any studies on it, but I'm telling you that the way that I feel on days when I just like get out of bed, put on whatever, doesn't matter what I put on, like, jeans and a crew neck, brush my hair, brush my teeth, and then I start working. The way that I feel from that versus when I get up, put on an outfit that I love, do my hair, do my makeup, put on some jewelry, is like insane, the difference of those two things. And it's not even that I think that I look like, oh, I just look so much better when I have like a nice outfit, or I look so much better when my hair and makeup's done. It's just more, I think that I've like put the effort in and I just feel put together. So then that's like what I feel like I am bringing to the table that day. And so when I feel like that, I feel way more motivated to do the tasks that I need to do, to maybe go the extra mile, to show up for my habits, to show up for my routine. And so I just really strongly encourage you to look at, what does getting ready look like for me for the day? And, maybe for some of you, this sounds silly. You're like, yeah, I get ready every day. I put on a cute outfit and do my hair every day. But for some of us who maybe can fall into this little pit of like feeling sorry for ourselves, or just feeling like, oh, I don't really have anything cute to wear, so I'm just not even going to try. I just really want to encourage you. I personally try to do like 2 out of 3 of the things. So for hair, makeup, and outfit, I try to do like 2 out of 3. And, some days I do all 3. Some days I don't do any. I will say that. But on the days that I do, when I do the 2 out of 3, that is when I feel so good. I feel put together. I feel like I show up better in general. And so I just do think that there is definitely something to be said about taking care of our physical appearance, about showing up in the world, as the person that we want to be. And I'm not saying that you don't need to go buy new clothes or new outfit or anything like that. I'm just saying, what can you do with what you have to make the most of it, to show up and to get ready for the day. Lastly, this is the last thing, okay, to glow up. I want you to check your protein intake. I don't know if I just keep seeing this because I believe in the cult of protein, but I see other girls talking about this and how much it's changed their life. I don't know if you're on that side of the algorithms yet, but I definitely am, and I fully believe it. When I eat enough protein, I feel so good. And when I don't eat enough protein, I am grumpy. I feel like faintish. I just feel so tired all the time. I do not feel good. And when I get enough protein, it's like, oh, okay, life is not that bad. And so if you have not experimented with just figuring out how much protein you need and actually tracking it and trying to get it, I would really encourage you to do so. There's many resources on the internet. But yeah, just trying to incorporate some more high protein snacks and foods into your diet can be really, really helpful. Before I was aware of protein grams or anything like that, I was definitely not eating enough protein at all. And some foods that have really helped me are eating cottage cheese, eating more tuna, having protein shake, and just knowing that actually makes a difference has been so helpful for me. Those are all of the habits that I have for you guys today. I would love to hear what you're working on for 2025. I know we're all at different stages of life and of our journeys, but I would just love to know what you're working on. Please let me know below. And also, if there's anything else that you guys want to hear or see, I'm always open to hearing your guys' ideas for podcast episodes. Like I said, I've been planning out 2025 and just what we're going to talk about this year. So if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Follow me on Instagram. Send me a message and you can tell me kind of what you'd like to see, what you're working on, or leave me a comment below. But thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode. We will be back next week on Tuesdays. Our upload day right now is Tuesdays, but I hope you guys have a wonderful week. We'll chat with you guys next week. Bye.